To match the lighting, we have to match three aspects: the direction, the quality, and the ratio of the light. Starting with the direction, on a virtual set, we might know that there's a window over here, and the character is standing here. So placing a key light here will take care of it. Then she walks over to the light, and then she responds to the window in the composite. By the way, the key is so noisy because we didn't use spill cloth. There's an enormous amount of freedom to set the light direction because the eye can't tell with any precision if the direction is really right or not. So in the composite, this will be as good as this. We can even go as far as matching only the overall left or right direction. But it's important that we do make a decision. Especially if the 3D is merely being built, the direction is not known yet. And in that case, we have to decide then and there what the lighting is. And the 3D people will be happy to match it. If the set is not known yet, it's extremely important that you basically make up a set in your mind. Light it, and then the 3D folks will have to match it. But you'll be much better off with even a crude preview render, and you should pretend to refuse to shoot without it. If you're matching live action, you need to determine the light direction in the background plate. And the first thing to look for is which side is the brightest. Sometimes there's a clear key side. On an overcast day, the light tends to be soft with a bias towards the sky. When we're with our back towards the sun, the light is also soft, but with a rim. Even though the sun is technically the key, you should treat this as soft skylighting with a rim as an accessory. Another way to read the light direction is to look at the shadow direction, but only as an overall guide. You only have to match it accurately if you're actually going to extract the shadows, which we'll talk about later. And if the shadows are just a small blob under things, it indicates a soft overall light from above. It's also important to notice if there are multiple light sources. In addition to a rim and a skylight, this shot has heavy bounce from the house on the left. We should try to copy all these sources. However, some DPs go a step further and also throw in a backlight to make the edges pop in the composite, which is a bad idea. Or even worse, do a magenta backlight to cancel green, which is deadly. You shouldn't do any tricks to help with the composite. Although it's of course fine to do a backlight if you would have done it anyway on a real location. Moving on to the quality of the light, by that we mean whether the light is hard or soft. Hard lights emanate from a single point, like the sun or a street light, causing a hard shadow. Hard lights are the least beautiful because even skin blemishes cast a shadow. So hard light is usually something you do to either get a chiseled masculine look or simply because you're trying to copy sunlight. Hard lights are also limited to a single source. because multiple lights cast multiple hard shadows that are a dead giveaway you're on a soundstage. Soft lights are soft because they're physically larger, so the shadow is more undefined. Since the light is coming from many directions, no small bump can cast a shadow, making skin appear softer. The easiest way to detect light softness in a background plate is to look at the shadows, whether they're hard or soft. You can also look at specular highlights. If the object has one, there's a hard light somewhere. Most indoor light is very soft with a bias towards window sides and light fixtures. But the same as you often do rims in regular shooting, even indoor where they're totally unmotivated. It's totally okay to do them if it works for you creatively. When we said before not to do backlighting, we only meant not to do them to help with the keying. When copying soft light, we're not trying to literally measure out the size of light sources to nail an exact softness. All that matters is whether the light is hard, medium, soft, or very soft. The eye can't tell much more than 3 or 4 grades of softness. Matching sunlight is much more difficult. And you have to know that indoor sunlight will never look completely like real sunlight no matter how much your DP tries to convince you. So consider outdoor green screen for anything that takes place in sunlight. If you want to try your hand at indoor sunlight, these are the goals. First of all, you need a point light, meaning a single extremely powerful light like an 18K HMI. You want it to be as far away from the actors as possible because it makes the light rays more parallel like sunlight. If the light is too close, you get warped shadows. Ideally, you want a stage with a high roof, so you can hang this single point light all the way up here. But such a stage is hard to find, so you need to bring the light down here, forcing a light angle like morning or late afternoon. So in practice, if you can trust the weather, you're much better off simply shooting it outdoors where the lighting is free. On the downside, if you're extracting shadows, you have to plan your wide shots for the time of day where the shadows have the right length. It's much easier to fake a different time of day in closer shots. Finally, we need to match the ratio, which is the difference between the key side and the fill side, which can be very big, like a 6-stop difference, or very small, like a 1-stop difference. These have to be the same as in the background plate because it's a dead giveaway if the ratios don't match. All you have to do is eyeball the difference in the background plate and match it. If you're matching a 3D set that hasn't yet been lit, you'll again have to make a decision that the 3D people will have to follow. On-set compositing can be a great educator when it comes to ratio. But the most important part is that you do some sort of ratio, because then the compositor can increase it by working the contrast button, or decrease it. This is an important point because a mistake most DPs make is to not shoot with enough ratio. And then the compositor doesn't have anything to pull contrast from. We just end up torturing the image. So always make sure to do at least 3 stops of ratio to give the compositor something to play with. Unless the goal is completely flat lighting. There's one more thing to match, which is the color temperature, but this is a little harder. As a general rule, you should shoot things clean. So even if something is supposed to be very reddish or very bluish in the final composite, you get a better recording and a better key by shooting it clean, and then color correcting it in post. That makes it hard to use on-set compositing because doing it right will look wrong, but it's much better for quality. However, there are 2 situations where you want to shoot in the final light. The first is if you have multiple color temperatures, like if you have a yellowish key light with a bluish rim. You have no choice but to shoot that as it'll appear. Secondly, if you're doing a night shot with a rim, but you shoot it at normal light levels, when you print it down, you also print down the rim, turning it gray. The only way to have the rim properly exposed is to shoot the actor dark as she will appear. And then we're much more realistic in the composite.